you. Is that okay? Again, my name is Symone Sanders, and I currently serve as the chair of the Youth Committee for the National Coalition for Juvenile Justice, and I'll be joining the campaign this week. Let's get to this conversation. So y'all know, a year ago tomorrow, Officer Darren Wilson shot and killed Michael Brown and left his body lying in the street for 4 hours. Following Michael Brown's death, protesters and activists took to the street of Ferguson, Missouri, and they stayed in the streets for 365 days. Washington, D.C., Chicago, Illinois, Los Angeles, California, Dallas, Texas, Atlanta, Georgia, and numerous other cities across the country. A year ago tomorrow, young people in America were galvanizing their determinations that these killings had to end and stood up to exclaim, "Enough is enough," and Black Lives Matter. I think we can all agree we have come a long way as a country, but tragedies like Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Tamir Rice, Sam Dubois, Sandra Bland, Trayvon Martin, Oscar Grant, Walter Scott, and John Crawford are constant reminders that we still have work to do. And that we need people we trust leading this country to get the work done. We need new voices that are not afraid to speak truth about the injustices that are plaguing people of color and the plight of everyday, hardworking Americans. It's important that we say the words Black Lives Matter, but it's also important we have people in political office who are going to turn those words into action.
Yeah!
People who not only understand, but people who are ready to do something about the communities across America that are still disenfranchised and suffer from institutional and structural racism. People who understand economic inequality and racial inequality are parallel issues that must be addressed simultaneously.
Yeah! Woo!
To preserving and protecting the right to vote, reforming the juvenile justice and criminal justice systems so we're not locking up a whole generation, but instead we're ending the disgrace that is the mass incarceration of African Americans. People who realize that Dr. King's dream was more than just being able to sit at the lunch counter. It also encompassed the possibility of owning the establishment.
Oh, I love that.
And I mean deep down in your hearts, you know which candidate for president will shut down the private prison industry. You know which candidate will have the courage to fight to end unjust mandatory minimums and the death penalty.
Woo!
Will move to swiftly implement alternatives to incarceration for non-violent offenders. Will use his Justice Department to protect Black lives. Today, I encourage you to reflect on the lives of Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Tamir Rice, Sam Dubois, Sandra Bland, Trayvon Martin, Oscar Grant, Walter Scott, John Crawford, and all those who have tragically and unjustly lost their lives, whose names we do not know. of the United States of America. We're talking about advocating for workers' rights to form unions, jobs for our kids, fighting to end institutional racism, fighting for quality and affordable education for people who work hard, humane-based community policing, comprehensive immigration reform, or Indian Citizens United and getting big money out of candidate who, with our support, will bring the transformative change, the political revolution that this country needs. Without further ado, it is my honor to present to you the next president of the United States of America.
Let me thank Lynn and Luis and Selden and Pramila and Giapal and Simone for those wonderful introductions. Guys, thank you very much. Brothers and sisters, what a turnout. Thank you so much for being here. Doesn't seem true, but we began this campaign about 3.5 months ago, and the momentum has been unbelievable. We've had huge turnouts in Burlington, Vermont, in Denver, in Minneapolis, in Madison, in Phoenix, in Portland, Maine, in New Orleans. But I want to tell you something tonight. We got 12,000 people here. And a few minutes ago, I just said hello to 3,000 people outside. They say, well, what's going on? Why do so many people come out? Why do you have more individual campaign contributors than any other campaign? Why last week did we have 3,700 organizational meetings all across this country? 100,000 people. Pretty simple. The answer for why people are rising up is that all across this country, people are sick and tired of establishment politics, establishment economics, and they want real change. Understand that corporate greed is destroying our country, that American politics is now dominated by big money interests, and that much of the mainstream media is prepared to talk about everything except that is what is most important.
Yeah!
The other point that I want to make in opening is to tell you that this campaign differs from any other campaign because I will be very honest with you and tell you what few tell you. And that is no president can do it alone. No one person in the White House can take on Wall Street, corporate America. Together, we need a grassroots political movement from the west to the east, which tells the big money interests this country, our government, belong to all of us, not just a handful. Say a brief word now, because you've heard a lot from the people who came before me about institutional racism and criminal justice reform. Let me be very brief and say this. As somebody who has one of the strongest lifetime civil rights records in the United States Congress, no president will fight hard to end the stain of racism in this country and reform our criminal justice system. Brothers and sisters, today we are living in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. But almost nobody knows that because almost all of the wealth rests in the hands of the few. The United States now has more income and wealth inequality than any major country on earth, and it is worse today than at any time since 1928. The issue of wealth and income inequality is the great moral issue of our time. It is the great political issue of our time. It is the great economic issue of our time, and together we will address it. Profoundly wrong when the top 1/10 of 1% owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. There is something profoundly wrong when 58% of all new income goes to the top 1%. There is something profoundly wrong when we have seen in recent years a proliferation of millionaires and billionaires while the average American works longer hours for lower wages, and we have the highest rate of childhood poverty. of any major country. That is wrong. That is unacceptable. That will change. We need an economy that works for working families and the middle class, not just a handful of billionaires. This campaign is sending a message to the billionaire class. And that message is simple and straightforward. You cannot have it all. Huge tax breaks when children in America go hungry. You cannot continue to send our jobs abroad when millions of Americans are in desperate need of work right here. Profits in the Cayman Islands and Bermuda, you will pay your fair share of The billionaire class cannot take advantage of all of the benefits of America if they do not accept their responsibilities as Americans. But the economic crisis that we face is not just the grotesque level of income and wealth inequality. We've got to be honest and understand that for the last 40 years, the great middle class of this nation, once the envy of the entire world, that great middle class is disappearing. Despite exploding technology and increased worker productivity, median family income is almost $5,000 less today than it was in 1999. In my state of Vermont, in your state of Washington, people are working not one job, they're working 2 jobs, they're working 3 jobs, trying to cobble together some income and some health care. That is not an American economy. We can and must do much better than that. About the economy, what's happening to working families, it is important for you to understand that real unemployment is not the 5.3% which the newspapers report. That's official unemployment. Real unemployment includes those people who have given up looking for work and the millions of people who are working part-time when they want to work full-time. Real unemployment in America is almost 10.5%. And here is something else that almost nobody discusses, but it is a huge, huge issue. You know, one of the fun things about running for president is you can raise issues that other people choose not to talk about. Let me talk about one issue. And that is that today we have a horrendous tragedy in terms of youth unemployment in America. Last month, I asked the Economic Policy Institute to do a study for us. And what they found is that for kids who graduated high school between the age of 17 and 20, If they were white, real unemployment and underemployment was 33%. If they were Hispanic, real unemployment was 36%. If they were African American, real unemployment is 51%. Now, there is no excuse for the United States of America having more people in jail than any other country on earth, more than China. This is a failure of our criminal justice system, a failure of our educational system, and a failure of our economy. But I will tell you this. It makes more sense to me to be investing in jobs and education for our kids than in jails and incarceration. To continue to have the ugly distinction of having more people in jail. I want the United States to have the proud distinction of having the best educated population on earth. Too many lives have been destroyed by the so-called war on drugs. Too many lives have been destroyed by incarceration. We need to educate, we need to put people to work.
Yeah!
And when we talk about the economy, it is also important to put on the table that tens of millions of our people are working today at totally inadequate low wages. The current federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour is a starvation wage that must be raised. Congratulate the people of Seattle, your city council, and all those who stood up and said that we need a living wage for workers, $15 an hour. You did it in Seattle. We are now going to do it for the entire country. Not a radical idea is that no person who works 40 hours a week should be living in poverty.